President Trump gives Hamas 48 hours to return the hostage remains or face consequences. But what are those consequences, and how will they affect future plans for Gaza? Netanyahu says Israel will draw its own red lines, but behind the scenes, a power struggle is brewing, not just over Gaza, but over who truly controls the peace. So is the US really in control of Israel? We're covering it all and leaving nothing off the table on today's Quad. Welcome back, everybody, to the Quad. And this week, Emily and Shoshana are out of town, but I'm here with some very exciting repeat guest co-hosts and a new one. Ruthie Bloom, senior contributing editor of JNS and the co-host of her own show, Israel Undiplomatic. Bellamy Bellucci, model, just walked down the Tel Aviv Fashion Week runway, and she's going to tell us all about that, but mainly an Israel advocate and new guest co-host, David Lang. David Lang is the OG Israel advocate. I know you don't like me saying that, but executive director of Israeli Cool, an incredible platform, literally discovering every day the propaganda and lies of the pro-Hamas lot. Every single day I learn something from your website. Okay, post-war Gaza. A, are we post-war? Or is there a war still going on? And what are the Gazans continually saying? Look at this.
شرسة بتقوم فيها ميليشياتهم ضد من يخالفهم رأي أو من كان لهم ثارات معهم خلال الحرب أو شكلوا أي نقطة خلاف مع حماس، يعني بيطلعوا بجبات تويوتا وبأسلحة ومجنومات وأمورهم، يعني للأسف توحي إنه قد يمكثوا في غزة لفترة.
نعم، في المرحلة المقبلة ستقوم حماس بقمع عائلات عديدة مناهضة لها ومناهضة لفكرها الظلامي، وفرض هيمنتها من خلال الناس التي تدعم هذه الحرب. تحاول أن تراوغ الإدارة الأمريكية أو تخدع الإدارة الأمريكية بأنها تريد تسليم السلاح والانسحاب من المشهد، لكن في الحقيقة وفي الواقع حماس تجيش وتسلح العديد مقابل.
يهمنا نحن أهالي قطاع غزة عملية الدعم المطلق لمن هم خارج غزة لحماس.
Well, the 48-hour ultimatum of President Donald Trump to bring back all of the dead hostages that were part of the deal, that were supposed to be here in the first 72 hours of this deal, still not back. Trump is threatening. J.D. Vance is not exactly giving a timeline. So what is going on? And I'm thrilled to be unpacking this with a very intelligent panel indeed. Now, we're talking about lots of different rumors. Ruthie, you were in the Prime Minister's office, so you know how sometimes reality, what's going on behind the scenes and what's going on in the media are completely two different things. But people are talking about a Kushner plan that involves two Gazas. The Gaza that Israel continues to control, where there will be rebuilding and there will be investment, and then the Gaza of Hamas that, what, have they rolled over, given up? We can't get rid of them. Are they going to be bringing in hostile pro-Hamas forces like the Qataris and the Turks, God forbid? Are we going to have the Saudis or the Emiratis, people who actually know how to de-radicalize? But are they really ready for fighting these Islamist terrorists? What do you think's going on, Ruthie?
Well, I don't think that there are going to be two Gazas in the way that you described. Rather, one of the ideas thrown around is that in the meantime, while Hamas is still armed and is still roaming the streets of Gaza, to get it into its own area, to get all the civilians out of the way, again, as we've been doing throughout the war, to get them out of the way, to make it easier to have Hamas all in one central place in order to disarm them, etc. I don't think it's very realistic, but also keep in mind, you mentioned Kushner, there's also Vice President J.D. Vance, but you know, they also say things differently from the way Trump is saying. Trump is saying that Hamas has to disarm completely and be completely obliterated and that he'll be fair with Hamas if it complies. I guess that means he'll let some of them live and
escape.
Yeah, exactly. But when you ask, are we still at war or are we post-war? Well, in a way, Israel is always post or pre-war since its establishment, unfortunately. Yes, we are post-war in the sense that I really see Netanyahu as playing a long game here. And though Trump he's worked miracles, he also doesn't quite understand the Middle East, but Netanyahu does. And that's why I understand, I think that critics to his right in Israel are not giving him the benefit of the doubt, as though he's totally capitulating. And
Well, they always do that, right?
They do that, and
always do
I
that.
don't think that's the case. I think he's playing a long game, and he has his eye on the ball, and it has to do with the greater Middle East and connections with Arab allies, if you want to call them.
Or regional arrangement post-war.
Exactly.
Tell me, one of the accusations that are thrown at the moment within Israel is, oh, Israel's becoming a vassal state of the United States. They've set up a central command down in the south. Do you think that's a fair criticism? Because we feel like we can't move without America's say-so?
I think right now it is a very fair thing to say because there's also not enough information that's being put out there. It's all a game. Just like you just said right now, Trump wants one thing and then the Kushners are saying another thing. So I, as an American, am looking at it going, wait, this is starting to sound more and more like a real estate plan. Because what are you talking about, two different kinds of Gaza? So at some point, like I said last week, Israel needs to do what it needs to do. And to the world as well, they deem Israel, it's useless or very weak without America. It's one thing in terms of strategy and making sure that we have a massive powerhouse, which is the United States of America in the West. But at this point in time, is it to our own demise?
Do you think it is?
I think right now it is because we're in a holding cell. We're in a holding space because ultimately 48 hours, 72 hours, this person says this was, how about you figure out what will happen for you to get all of those bodies back, disarm Hamas. Disarm Hamas. Stop saying it. Actually do it. And then maybe that might be a different conversation because right now we're all just sitting going, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's not this. Well, I feel that it might be this way. But in everything that they're presenting, it's all fluff.
David, what do you think? Do you think there's even a chance of disarming Hamas? And if so, who's going to do it? Anybody but the IDF?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I just wanted to point out that I feel very honoured to be one of the only males, Australian males, to ever be on.
We might be the only Australian males.
So I feel very honoured. I just wanted to put that out there. But back to your question. First of all, just to talk about the idea that we might be a vassal state. I don't agree with you, Bellamy. I think that the US has leverage, but not a joystick over Israel. And there's always, throughout the history of American-Israeli relations, there's been this relationship that the US has leveraged through their aid to us, through the veto power in the UN, to basically, not get their way, but, to sort of set the agenda and look at the sort of the macro picture of the Middle East. Now, Israel, of course, we have to look at our security first and foremost.
Yeah.
And I think Bibi actually said something very interesting. I think it was earlier this week. He said that when he goes to America, the detractors say, oh, look, the America is bowing down to the Israelis. But here in Israel, it's the opposite. They're saying, look, you're bowing down to America. Now, I don't think anyone's bowing down to anyone else. It's just the real politic of the situation.
Yeah.
And I think, time and time again, you remember the famous incident with Menachem Begin and how he told off, I think it was Biden at the time, basically, we're never going to be the Jew with weak knees. I think when it comes to security, we know how to sort of navigate that tricky little area with the US. And I think with President Trump, he's giving us a little bit of that wiggle room. Now, going to the 48-hour timeline, or the ultimatum rather. Yeah, things are a bit vague, but I think that's deliberate. I think what we have here is a bit of a good cop, bad cop dynamic. Trump is the ultimate negotiator and businessman. Yeah. And so he knows how to put on the pressure. He's putting on the pressure. I think that Vance, he's coming in, he wants to see that things are more practical.
Like the operator.
Yeah, and like the things can actually, be put into practice. Right. Now, you've got all the regional allies, you've got Qatar, Egypt. You can't put them offside in terms of this plan. So I think, and in addition, I don't believe that Hamas, although there's a lot of psychological war games, warfare going on in terms of where the bodies are, they're saying that they don't know. I don't believe they do know where all the bodies are.
You think they don't actually know?
I
think they might know
could
where the
find out.
majority of them are.
Yeah, definitely the majority. But, we do know that on October the 7th, other players, other terrorist groups did take some of the hostages. So it could be that they were lost. But, so I think that Trump is sort of giving a little bit of wiggle room, and Vance is sort of the good cop.
We've given the wiggle room.
Well, I think we're kind of playing the game.
Yes.
We're playing the long game, as was said.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully all the bodies will come back. I agree with you that, you never know if they know where all of them are, but I do think they're still playing a psychological game, and they're kind of trying to push. So when Trump said something, then they try to appease, and they're like, oh, we're looking and we're bringing. What I'm wondering is what actually is going to happen the day after when we get there. Let's say all of the bodies are returned. What happens?
Okay, well, that's an excellent point, because phase one of this 20-point plan, Trump's plan, is the return of all the hostages, including the bodies.
And then
this is why Hamas is stalling.
Right.
And it stopped stalling. We got a few more bodies back when Israel attacked again.
That's right.
Then they said, okay, it's not just Trump's threats. So at the moment, here's Israeli intelligence assesses that Hamas knows where at least 10 of those 13 bodies are, and that we know where they are, and that which is why I don't understand why we don't just go in and get them. Okay, but Egypt, we have allowed Egypt to come in with big bulldozers, including beyond the yellow line, what we call the yellow line, that's Israel's protection. So it's odd to me, but I do trust Israeli intelligence that they say that actually Hamas knows. So whatever is going on here, we know Hamas is stalling, because the second phase is disarming Hamas.
Exactly. So people think that we're the ones that don't want to go to the second stage because of the nice perimeter that we currently have, which is 53% of Gaza. But in reality, you're right, Ruthie. The next stage of, I don't think anybody's thought about it that way, but well done. The next stage is them disarming. They don't want to get there, so they're going to drab the hostages. The other thing I was going to say is that the intelligence that we have of the hostages being in our perimeter means that we're also digging for them. We've also sent excavators to try and see whether the intelligence we have on the bodies that we have within our yellow line is something we can recover. But the disarmament is something that I just don't see who and how we do it. Bellamy.
The more time that is being given to them, they're literally arming again. They're getting more people and they're getting stronger the more time that's going on. So it is very much understandable that, okay, this is the one thing and they are stalling, but they also have power in that moment because they're getting more and more and more. So at any moment, okay, great. We know where the bodies are, or we found the bodies. What happens then?
In other words, they're playing with the timeline.
They're playing with the timeline. We're literally giving them a silver platter.
But what else are we going to do?
There's nothing to do, because it always ends up that Israel is then standing on the side, because the whole world keeps going, well, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But the whole two-step thing of how we have become a pariah of the world, way more than before, and especially in the 21st century when everything is at, the click of your hand, and you've got kids growing up with this kind of nonsense mentality, educated kids all around the world that have this verbiage that is really scary for somebody that grew up where I grew up and had to listen and experience so many different things, even with apartheid language, where I hear from somebody else that is privileged.
Do you feel that, as a South African, because I think it's cultural appropriation, this apartheid slander. It's cultural appropriation of a very painful history of South Africa that has been basically taken and used in the wrong way, but it's taking away from the pain of the South Africans.
Absolutely, but then the deal was made even before then that you know, people like Arafat were cozying close to the Mandela family and to O.R. Tambo and so forth. So the deal was made way then that when apartheid ends, this is your payback.
No,
That's why they keep saying, you know, we're not free until Palestine is free. That's something that I would hear growing up in South Africa. And I said, but I'm free. So what do I have to do with Palestine?
oh, that's wild. But sticking to the conversation of the propaganda, you have Palestinians in Gaza saying the world supporting Hamas is actually affecting us. It's killing us. David, you've been in this game for longer than all of us.
Not again.
Yeah, in this arena.
Yes, better.
Well, you've seen things get progressively worse. What gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning?
Yes, you do this relentlessly, day and night. You've been doing it for years.
Well, I think everyone or most of the people watching since October the 7th, they'll know what the answer is. It's like an imperative to get up in the morning and fight this. This is a cancer that has metastasized for so long. Maybe I recognized it a bit earlier than most, but now everyone realizes that it is no game and that things are shocking beyond belief. The world is turned upside down.
It really has.
Getting back to what you were talking about cultural appropriation a minute ago, I would say it's not cultural appropriation, it's human rights terminology appropriation. This is something that started, well, I'd say back in Durban there was a strategy, but even back in the 70s with the KGB and this neo-Marxist thing that we're seeing that is the cancer that's metastasized, they've co-opted all human rights, terminology, and, you know, apartheid, genocide, all these buzzwords.
And weaponized
and
against
we've become pariahs because we're the bad guys.
Yeah.
And that's how they've done it. And it's been a slow, it might look like it's all happened at once. It's almost like you think about sleeper cells out there.
Yeah.
Like actual physical, but also ideological sleeper cells.
Yeah.
And it's so scary what's going on. And it's all coming to light now. And, you know, we're all part of this battle.
Yeah.
And it is really life and death. And not just on the physical battlefield, but the ideological battlefield, because we see Jews being murdered everywhere.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, it's tragic to me, is that people don't seem to put one and one and make two. You see the terrible, terrible slander, blood libels against Israel. You see anti-Semitism rising. You see Islamism rising. Oh, coincidence, because that's how anti-Semitism has risen. And still people who are giving a platform to these lies don't take responsibility for the rise of anti-Semitism or don't see that there's a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it comes down to this co-opting of human rights terminology, because what happens here, and it's the most nefarious type of anti-Semitism, I believe, even more than on the far right, because it's under the guise of human rights. So it makes you feel like the good guy.
Yes.
And think about it. That is such a powerful driver.
Yes.
If you think you're doing a good thing for the world
really
and you're
do.
saving lives.
They really
They really, really do. You know, a lot of the far right, they kind of know, you know, okay, they've got the ideology and they think what they're doing is good for their race or their people.
Yeah.
But here it's more expansive and I think it's way more pernicious.
I mean, I completely agree. And we're seeing also Israel's isolation in the international arena with the ICJ and the ICC. And UNRWA, thank God for Mark Rubio when he came out the other day. Well, he was here. I mean, we've had, and this is, I guess, where the accusation of, oh, Israel's becoming a vassal state, because we had Trump. Then we had Kushner and Witkoff coming and going twice. They apparently love this restaurant in Nahalat Binyamin and the Kempinski, because they're there the whole time. And then you had Vance, and then you had Rubio. Rubio was staying around the corner from me this weekend. I saw the huge cars in the Orient. And you think, you know, and Rubio got up on stage and said, yes, there may be UN forces for the rebuilding of Gaza, or there may be UN forces for the food distribution in the future, but UNRWA cannot stay in the picture, which was honestly the best thing that's happened here over the last few weeks, because UNRWA is complicit with Hamas, in bed with Hamas, and many of its workers were part of the October the 7th massacre and, you know, took hostages, etc.
UNRWA's not going to play any role in it. Okay. UNRWA's not going to play any role in it. The UN is here. The UN is, we're seeing the work they're doing, the World Food Program. There's also not-profit NGOs, you know, humanitarian assistance organizations that are involved in this, Samaritan's Purse. So it's a conglomeration of about 8 to 12 groups that are here. The United Nations is here. They're on the ground. We're willing to work with them if they can make it work, but not UNRWA. UNRWA became a subsidiary of Hamas.
He's come and said that. And it almost feels that maybe the administration, the nuances in the administration confuse people.
Oh, definitely. What we know, okay, is that J.D. Vance has his eyes on the presidency, on the next election after the
on the primaries, yeah.
Trump, and Rubio does too. And Rubio and J.D. Vance are actually in different camps. Now, J.D. Vance has been moderating his more isolationist views.
Yes.
Rubio is much more openly pro-Israel, helping Israel, seeing Israel as an ally. You know, JD. Now, so there, and inside the administration, there are definitely two camps, maybe more than two. But the point is that there are those whose supporters are more on the what we call the woke right. I won't go as far as to say the Tucker Carlson right, because that I've now concluded is the loony right.
Well, I'm not so loony. The guy, the way I see it, is the guy is trying to revive Middle Ages Christian anti-Semitism.
Oh, definitely.
That's
which is
what he's trying to do.
Right, but there's no place for that in the United States of America. And that's why I say the loony right. There are right-wingers who may be more isolationist and who don't believe in interventionism, and they say that the Iraq War, you know, the neocons got us into the Iraq War. It's a thing. But Rubio, and that's why, by the way, just here's the neoconservatives, the woke right hates, really supported Rubio in his first run for president and before that. So there is this tension inside the administration, and that's one thing. But the other is the irony, tragic irony, has to do with Qatar. You're talking after Durban. It's not just Durban, but when you know, ironically, the Soviet Union fell. But it was from its playbook that the Palestinians, that the Arabs of pre-state Israel and then post-state Israel took their propaganda and spread it. The idea behind that propaganda isn't only against Jews and Israel now, it was against the West.
The West.
And you infiltrate the United States, right? And you destroy it from within. Qatar has taken on that role. Qatar funds all the lies and indoctrination at universities across the United States, Europe.
The media
with Al Jazeera. But Al Jazeera isn't openly, you know, people can see that. But it does more underhanded things. And it funds all kinds of organizations, and you can't keep track of where they are and who they are. And we know, probably in Israel as well. And Qatar became a mediator in this war. Qatar houses Hamas, funds Hamas, is on Hamas's side. And so then you have Qatar not only acting as mediator in the hostage crisis and the war, but trying to play a big role in post-war Gaza. This is worrisome.
I agree. And getting the protection, the NATO-like protection of the United States, you know, to protect them against regional actors, which to me is antithetical to trying to bring in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia and Qatar, of course, don't get along. They're on opposite sides. Qatar is very concerning. And, you know, Bellamy, you lived in the, I would say, creative community of New York for many years as a dancer. You saw this creeping in your own spaces, right?
Yes, I saw it creeping in my own space. And the most terrifying thing about that was but I thought art was supposed to be non-political. So like, if you look at it like the old days where it was like an artist is there to make you think. Okay, so it's one thing to make you think. We'll push an idea, but you don't become part of that idea. You start a conversation. No, it's gone beyond starting a conversation, because they will now dictate to you who you are. And as an artist, you're supposed to be a lefty. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to believe in that. I was never that person. So I had a lovely time.
I can imagine.
I had a lovely time.
But also what they don't understand is that this is all very deliberately sponsored by an Islamist country that is against every one of these liberal values they think they stand for.
Every single thing on a daily basis. You're waking up and you're living a lie because you're being made to believe something that is not real. So that's one thing. So when someone says to me, Israel's not real, or Israel, and I'm like, okay, hold it, buddy.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't even put 2 feet together to know what the story of Samson and Delilah or something else was, when your job was just to stand on quarter and put your foot here and wave. Like, if you can't do the basic minimum, I don't understand what you are trying to do having a conversation on an intellectual level.
They all think they're all experts now. Comedians are geopolitical experts now.
Every single person is an expert because everybody's been bolstered in these ways, because these sleeper cells have all of a sudden been activated, and especially after October 7th, yes, Jews became activated more because they went, whoa, I might have just been a Jew or maybe just somebody that might light candles every now and again. You've seen this rise in pride that's happened within the Jewish community.
Yeah.
And then you've got the as a Jews that are in the creative spaces and that have platforms that they use against their own people, not understanding that they are still part of the same group that they will come for when the time comes.
The Jews from Andani, the chickens for KFC. David, you've seen that. You've seen a complete uptake of, warriors in your space against and for. How do you see this now? How do you see us moving forward? Let's say we're in post-war. What does Israel have to do now to really take the fight for the delegitimization of Israel seriously, to fight back?
Well, if you're speaking about online predominantly,
Yes. But not just, because, Bellamy's talking about creative spaces.
yes,
They've taken over everywhere.
yes. So again, I don't think the fight is Israel's fight. I think it is Jews' fight. But more than that, it's actually the West's fight, going back to what Ruthie was saying, which is 100% correct.
Yeah.
So what I believe we need to do more of to effectively fight what is going on is to bring it into the context of a fight for the West.
So zoom out.
We have to zoom out, for sure. And it's very easy. Now, I'm very much, one of the things I love to do, I don't like blocking accounts that are disseminating anti-Semitism at all.
Yeah.
I actually love those accounts in a way.
You engage with them.
I engage with them for a certain period of time,
Yeah.
but with the purpose to basically shine a light on them, because they are their own worst enemies. And I want people who are watching to understand this.
Yes.
That they are giving us a gift. They are really, really horrible people. I was going to say another word, but I don't think we should swear.
Well, we've got scumbag coming up.
Okay.
Scummy.
The S word is scummy.
That word is part of the
I don't have to censor this. So I do believe, like for instance, we see all these sorts of protests.
Yes.
Okay, riots, protests, and they are, for instance, burning the American flag in Australia, my home country. They are burning the Australian flag.
Yeah.
Shine a light on that, because what I'm seeing is that there's a silent majority of people who are being activated along with us.
Yes.
They are not the loudmouths on social media or the bots on social media.
Quiet majority.
And all of a sudden, okay, maybe when they came for the Jews, they didn't get activated, but when they see that they're starting to come for them, they're starting to come for their Christmas by candlelight, carols by candlelight. They're coming for their cultural symbols. They're coming for their jobs. For instance, truck drivers being stuck in New York on the way to their job, and there are people lying across, blocking the traffic. They're starting to get majorly peeved.
Yes.
The P word.
So you think that look, I also believe it, but I think sometimes am I just fooling myself to think that people are waking up? We had Tommy Robinson here last week. Emily and I interviewed him, and that's what he's saying. I'm waking people up. Is it going to be enough, and is it going to be enough on time? That's the question.
Well, I have one caveat to what you said, David, and that is that the people, if you take the United States, for example, the people, what you would call average Americans, you don't hear from, they're not bots, they're not active on
they're not interested.
Are patriots, and they already know this, and they have woken up, and that is why Donald Trump is president in the United States.
Yeah.
The woke people, it doesn't work on them, and I'll tell you why. When you say, yeah, but look, they're doing, they're desecrating your flag and they don't want Christmas trees. The woke people say, that's good. America's bad.
Yes.
America's a bad country. The flag doesn't represent me, and neither does Christmas and all that. For a long time they were abolishing, and they would say, happy holidays, not Merry Christmas. So if you're asking me, there's the woke, and there are people who are they're already awake. So the question is, how are you going to fight? Who's going to win? But we know that politically, at least, that the culture, we've lost the culture.
Yes.
But the ballot box is a different story, and that happened in Israel too. Israeli culture is far left, and Netanyahu keeps winning elections. In America, Trump. It's true that he didn't win the second time after, but there was a question about stolen ballots, etc. But he then won again because most of Middle America and most sane people do not like this radicalism.
Yes.
So we see that. We see what's happening in Argentina.
Yes.
We see what's happening in Britain. But the culture, we're not going to get the culture. I don't think you're ever going to be able to go on a runway again as a model with any other model who's conservative or pro-America, pro-Israel. It's not happening. But that doesn't mean that the majority isn't. So that's the question. How do we win over universities and other, because that shouldn't be uniculture the way artists and writers are. So I don't know.
Maybe when America starts waking up about foreign funding influencing their academia, and I guess the test ground of what you're saying is what's going to happen next week in the mayoral elections of New York, which is probably a test of what you're exactly talking about, even though New York may not be representative of the whole of America. So we'll hold our breath and see what happens. But Scumbag of the Week is a very important part of this show. So let's get on with it. Bellamy, who's your scumbag this week, dear?
My scumbag is Tom York from Radiohead. For him to say that he will not come anywhere within 5,000 miles of Netanyahu's government. Just like I said earlier, if art is not supposed to be political, why make a political stand? That is specifically political. It's one thing to disagree with the government. That's something that we constantly keep saying. But what does that have to do with the Israeli people?
But I'll tell you why that's really sad for me to hear, and I read it. Tom York was actually pretty pro-Israel. Why? And I read the story. It's amazing. Maybe you know the story because you're as old as me. Essentially, when Radiohead were nobodies, one DJ in Israel couldn't stop playing their music. And he couldn't stop playing the music to the point that other people started catching on to this. They became popular in Israel before they became popular anywhere, and then it trickled down. And he, at the beginning of this war, actually was on stage in Australia, and people started shouting things against Israel, and he left the stage and said, if you don't want to hear me, why? Because he was pro-Israel. So he's been now pushed and harassed to a corner. And of course, he doesn't want to say Israel or Jews, so he says Netanyahu, which is, by the way, what that other moron, Natalie Portman, kept saying. I was born in Jerusalem, but I won't go to Israel because of Netanyahu. There's always a big bad wolf in the Jewish world, right? You're being played as well. It's a shame that he has to be a scumbag because he didn't start off as a scumbag.
It is, and especially because he's been somebody that was steadfast on holding on to the fact of and knowing the history that Radiohead has with Israel and what the Israeli people did for their career.
Yes.
That is the most painful
It's such
thing. We're
gratitude.
losing everyone.
And also, don't say anything at all.
Yes, don't.
Keep your mouth shut. You are not politicians. You are not public political figures. You can just stay home and do whatever you do. Okay?
It's radical.
It's a shame. It's a scumbag for me, which is painful, but well done for picking that up. Ruthie.
Okay, my scumbag of the week, but I could use him as my scumbag of the year or the decade.
The decade, yeah.
Is President Erdogan of Turkey. And he is trying desperately to have a role in post-war Gaza because he wants to take over Gaza. He wants to invade Israel. He wants to take over the Middle East and Syria as he's the Neo-Ottoman Empire.
Yes.
Now, it wouldn't normally bother us. The trouble is two things. One is NATO. Two is President Trump treating him as though he's a great guy. I mean, Trump, let's face it, Trump says that about a lot of people.
Yes, he said that about Putin.
Yeah, he says that he's a great guy and all this. So it doesn't, it's always, so it doesn't mean anything. But what does mean something is that Turkey is prominent in all these discussions.
Yes.
Okay, now, he is an open anti-Semite. He has said that Israel is a terrorist state. He has supported Hamas. He has housed Hamas. he has sent. He was responsible for the flotilla in 2010, the Mavi Marmara.
Yes.
He is an evil guy, and he should be nowhere near anything that involves disarming Hamas or creating a new Middle East. And lately, I just want to say, in Turkey, by the way, there was an effigy of Netanyahu hanging from a crane by his neck. You know, that's what Turkey has become, and it's a shame. Turkey pre-Erdogan,
Yes.
we were really good friends with
Huge allies.
Turkey, and Israelis flooded Turkey and vacations, and Erdogan is my scumbag. That's it.
I agree with you. He's a perpetual scumbag. And the guy also, which is very scary, has gotten himself very influential in Syria. And that is very problematic. So absolutely. I completely concur with your scumbag. David, your first scumbag of the week, even though you've been pointing them out for years.
Yes. So, you know, I'm not, as you know, I'm not averse to naming scumbags of the week, of the day,
Yes.
of the minute.
Yes.
But this one actually, Fleur, really, really hurts.
Okay.
My scumbag of the week is one of the comedy legends of all time, Mr. John Cleese.
Oh, I know.
Yes. And it pains me even to say that.
And he's been here a lot.
Yes, he's been here. Now, I couldn't believe it, but, you know, I've seen him on X, and he's all of a sudden gone not just anti-Israel, but actually anti-Semitic. He's crossed that line. What do I mean? Well, the first thing I saw was he retweeted Roger Waters. Enough said, right?
Enough
I mean, if you
said.
retweet Roger Waters,
Yeah.
you've got a few brain cells missing.
You're drunk
And-
anti-Semitic.
Yes. But he's gone beyond that. So I saw he's retweeted an anti-Zionist group that said along the lines of, Zionists cannot be Jews. We're worse than Haman and the Nazis. So, you know, the old IHAR working definition of anti-Semitism contravention.
Yeah.
He's called Israel an evil country, or he's amplified a tweet rather, calling Israel an evil country. It's unbelievable, and I just couldn't believe it. And I had to double check that this is an official account. It's an official John Cleese account. I ran it through ChatGPT as well, just to be sure. Has 5.2 million followers. So, and as you rightfully said, you know, he's been to Israel. He was here in 2019.
Yes.
He was in a commercial in 2012, I believe, for chocolate spread.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is irony. I always misuse the word irony, but maybe ironically, he played like a US general who was the Israelis in the commercial were asking for permission to strike Iran.
Oh my God.
Wow.
What a shame.
And, you know, he looks like a hypocrite as well. He's pro-Ukraine, very anti-Russian, but
Yeah.
he's also very anti-Trump. So maybe some of it comes from old age. Maybe some of it comes from Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
But it is extremely, extremely disappointing. And very, very odd. Oh, another thing is when he was here in 2019, he told the crowd how he has 2 Jewish grandchildren because one of his kids married a Jew.
Wow.
So all signs point towards him being pro-Israel. He once laughed at an anti-Hamas joke as well. But here's the punchline to this very bad joke. He has some shows, no joke, I checked. There's still shows here in Israel in late November, early December. They were postponed from June, and they're still up. He's still apparently performing in this evil country.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Check it out.
The funny, I mean, I've seen this and it's very disheartening. I was a huge fan, you know, Monty Python and everything.
Same age and everything.
But same age. But the funniest is our friend Talhar too. He put a thing, I remember when Israel was a normal country, and she retweeted and said, and I remember when you used to be funny.
Saw that, yes.
So good one, Tal. Yeah, painfully so. Let's see if he comes. Let's see if he shows up.
Would you go?
You know, it's very interesting because my husband and I had tickets for 2019 and we forgot about it. And we were so bummed.
Maybe that's why he became anti-Semitic.
It could be that I wasn't there in the audience to give him my vibes. Yeah, it's a painful one. I think we've had some painful ex-friends who are scumbags this week. My scumbag is a little bit more political. Spain, unfortunately, has been a den of anti-Semitism in the last few years. And unfortunately, the American Jewish Committee is acting this week as a tool to legitimize a government that spreads anti-Semitism. On October the 24th, Jewish leaders from Latin America gathered in Madrid for a forum organized by the AJC and the Spanish Federation of Jewish Communities. None of my Spanish friends are part of these federations. The venue, Casa America, part of the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. According to some sources, this event could have been meaningful only if it had denounced the growing anti-Semitism in Spain. Instead, it issued a generic declaration that ignored the country's alarming reality. Spain today is, by testimony and observation, one of the most hostile environments in Europe for Jews. Hatred, incitement, and violence multiplied and normalized by the political leadership, Pedro Sanchez. The Sanchez government has accused Israel of genocide, promoted boycotts of Israeli products and academic institutions, obstructed exports to Israel, threatened Israel's participation in events like the Vuelta, the cycling thing, and Eurovision. And now they're just talking about freezing bank accounts of Israelis. They've justified, their ministers have justified Hamas atrocities, and they've speculated about acquiring nuclear weapons to defend Palestinians from Israeli aggression. And yet, the AJC sat alongside this government, legitimizing its image and ignored its active role in fueling anti-Semitism. The so-called National Plan Against Anti-Semitism that they rolled out isn't a Spanish initiative. It's a cosmetic EU requirement. The IRA definition is applied selectively, while Spain's leaders repeatedly violated, and AJC and the Federation of Spanish Communities essentially whitewashed all of this. And so for all of those reasons, they wanted to do a photo op, but the photo op whitewashed and threw the community of Jews that are suffering in Spain under the bus. You are all my scumbags this week. Whew.
Wow.
I've done a lot of Spain, I've got to tell you. But to have Jewish communities, Jewish organizations actually going along with this, it's extremely sad. All right, we always like to finish with good vibes. And we always have heroes for so many scumbags. David, let's start with you. Who's your hero this week?
This is way more fun than the scumbag.
Of course.
So my hero for this week is an actor by the name of Jerry O'Connell. And he sometimes flies under the radar. He was the chubby kid in Stand By Me, one of the greatest movies of all time.
And he got thin.
Oh, you're preempting everything I'm going to say next. I was going to say he got jacked, more jacked than me even. But that's not why he's the hero of the week, although it's very inspirational. He is the hero of the week because he has been consistent in his support for the Jewish people and the Jewish state. And without all the bells and whistles, you have certain celebrities that sort of make more noise and everyone is sort of inviting them to the galas and all this sort of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I like those people as well. I appreciate help from all quarters. But Jerry O'Connell, just going about his business, every single petition that comes out, he signs it. Whether it's, against the boycott, the Hollywood boycott of, Jewish Israeli films, whether it's, against anti-Semitism. Jerry O'Connell, he's always on those petitions.
Yeah.
If you look at his Instagram, he is constantly posted for the release of the hostages.
Wow.
Just again, very quietly. But he goes beyond that because, for instance, he's posted selfies, like, for instance, with some young religious Jewish guys, Shabbat Shalom, like as a friend.
Yeah.
One of his recent posts, he said the best falafel in California or LA, I believe, Hollywood falafel. And, you see a guy with a kippah who's obviously the owner. And, it's not just a feel-good picture. You see what's going on here. Yeah. You see that it's real support because a lot of businesses are being boycotted.
Yeah.
And so Jerry O'Connell has taken on himself to use, he's got like over 500, maybe 600,000 followers on Instagram, and he's using his influence for good. And I mentioned him this week, one, because he flies under the radar, and I want to make sure that he gets his due desserts. But in addition, the Creative Community for Peace awarded him one of the ambassadors for peace.
Oh.
I believe it happened last week.
Yes.
So he has been acknowledged, but I want to use my the Quad's incredibly large audience to further push the idea that Jerry O'Connell, you're a star, and if you ever do come to Israel, I would like to take you to the best falafel in Israel.
Okay, we're all coming with you.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. He, like you say, under the radar, just being a friend. That's all we wanted. That's all we've ever needed.
Yeah,
Be a
he
friend.
stands by
And
us.
he doesn't get very political about it. He's just being a friend.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy like that. Thank you very much. Just a great hero. Ruthie, who's your hero this week?
Okay, my hero is Eitan Mor. He is a recently released hostage who was in the tunnels, the dungeons of Hamas for the past 2 years. Now, his father was once my hero on your show.
That's right.
His father founded something called the forum,
Tikva.
the Tikva Forum, and it is separate from the hostage families forum. These two, there was a split in the hostages families, between those that believed that the protests and screaming, we have to stop the war and we hate Netanyahu, would help the hostages come home, and the other group that said, no, 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 that's encouraging Hamas. Eitan Mor was released, and his father spent the war criticizing the street protests and saying that is prolonging our kids in Gaza, their abduction, their captivity in Gaza. And the other families vilified him and said, you don't even love your son. You don't care if he gets out. I spent 2 years vilifying him. Anyway, Eitan finally comes home, and it's really lovely, and his father weeps in his arms. Yeah, really, he didn't care that he came home. And Eitan just gave an interview in which he said that his captor told him, if there's a deal, you're going home first because your parents are never at those protests.
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
so they're not valuable to us. And Eitan, the whole 2 years, he didn't hear, he didn't see his father in the streets, and he knew. He said, but he didn't feel that they didn't love him and didn't care about him. He knew, and he persevered, and his faith in his parents and in God, and so he's my hero this week.
Wow, it's it's a shame that the whole thing got politicized, and it's a shame that the Hostage Family Forum decided that, as well as getting their children released, and you can't judge anybody for going to the streets and screaming, but that bringing down the government was also part of that deal, and that was the mistake. That was a strategic mistake. But Eitan Mor, I met him, and and this man was steadfast the whole time. Yeah.
Zvika is the father, Eitan is the son. They're wonderful, and his mother is also lovely. They're just a great family.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful hero. Bellamy, who's your hero?
Eli Sharabi.
Oh,
what a man. What a man. So I met him yesterday very briefly backstage at Tel Aviv Fashion Week Gala.
He was also walking down the...
Walking down the runway. They
I
had
love that.
full hostages that were released, but the whole energy changed in the whole convention center. Every time somebody saw him, someone to say thank you, to get a hug from him, and he's so open.
Yeah.
But I kept reminding myself of what I had heard during the week, because it kept playing on in my mind. There was a little clip of him on social media from an interview that he did, and he said, after being held for 491 days, I don't have the privilege to stay in bed and cry.
Yeah. He lost his daughters and wife. He chose life.
He chose life. And if you want to talk about resilience, that man, I mean, everybody was up on their feet just cheering him on and shaking his hand. The leadership role that he has taken on for himself right now, not just to speak out for Israel or the Jewish people or to tell his story, but just how inspirational he is.
Yeah.
With no words, nothing. The kind of man that can just walk into a room and you go, wow, you made it, we will make it.
Yeah.
That is something that's powerful. So that's my hero.
And his book, Hostage, is a huge bestseller.
Yes, I'm so happy. It's really wonderful. My sister's reading it. I want to read it. She says she can't put it down. And his captivity story is also inspiration of the way he basically mentored these younger captives. I'm so happy you got to walk down the catwalk with him.
It was quite something, you know. I was like in my own little world. Everybody's running around with their teams and everything else, and I'm just like, okay, there's a lot.
Well, first of all, good for the Tel Aviv Fashion Week for inviting you. And for inviting him. I think that was when I saw him walk down the catwalk, I thought, this is a man who's chosen life.
It's just warmed.
Thank you, beautiful hero. So my hero may be a little controversial this week. I know her. I would consider her a friend. She's certainly a friend of Israel. And that is Michelle Bachmann, who's a pastor herself. She's a woman of God. And she actually, many years ago, ran for the presidential primaries of the Republican Party, for those of you who remember. She's really a wonderful woman. She spent years going around different countries around the world, Africa, to advocate for Israel, for the relationship with Israel. And she was in a panel this week and said some pretty harsh truths about the ceasefire and this deal. Just watch.
I was very concerned because of the historical nature of the relationships that both Mr. Witkoff and Jared Kushner had with Saudi Arabia and with Qatar. Because Qatar is the #1 funder of terrorism in the world. The #1 nation state of terrorism in the world is Iran. So just about as Israel is reaching the goalpost, in comes our envoys, Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and say, wait, stop it. You can't win. Sorry, we're not going to let you win. And so now we're going to have a ceasefire. And now we're going to negotiate. And in the negotiation, Israel, you're not getting control over the land. You're not getting it. And by the way, if the Arabs do everything right, there's a hint they might get their own state out of this deal. Judea, Samaria, and maybe Gaza for their own country. I mean, this is like shocking stuff.
Now, whether you agree or disagree with Michelle Bachmann, and I agree with some of what she's saying, she's basically saying, you know, Israel, why isn't Israel allowed to win? Why are people getting in the way of Israel winning? And she also said another harsh truth, which is, you know, you have a Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Why do you have to bring these extra special envoys? Now, like I said, I'm not sure I agree completely with her analysis, but the fact that within her own party and within her own camp, she is brave enough to get up there and basically talk about how something doesn't smell right to her and to confront what is going to be a barrage of criticism for saying what she said. To me, that just shows that she's a very brave woman that stands with her principles, that doesn't get confused, doesn't get fogged, and always, always, always puts Israel and the relationship of the US and Israel first. And so, Michelle, we love you. You've been to Jerusalem many times. We did a very nice project together. Come back. And thank you very much for standing for truth. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, another week passes, and we pray, as we do, and we do every week, and we've done from the beginning of the show, that all our hostages come home, including the ones that deserve a dignified funeral, by next week. Maybe this week will be the week. Thank you so much for watching.